First, let's begin with a quick reminder for the definition of high-rise buildings. According to Section 202 of IBC 2009, a building with an occupied floor more than 75 feet above the lowest level of fire department vehicle access is classified as a high-rise building. Now we can move on to look at our first change in the construction of high-rise buildings: exit and hoistway enclosures. In IBC 2006, there was no requirement for impact resistance for exit and elevator hoistway enclosures. Now this is of course separate from the fire resistance requirements which are already established in the code. In order to protect the structural integrity of these enclosures from blasts, impacts, or projectiles during fire, a new requirement was added in IBC 2009. So what is this new requirement? Well, to find this out, we're going to go to MATCAD and search for elevator hoistway in IBC 2009. I'm going to click on this hyperlink at the bottom here, which will take me to MATCAD as a user. As always, we have the codes and standards listed at the center of the screen, the publisher, title, and edition filters on the left-hand side, and our search box at the top. I'm going to start by entering our search query into the search box and search for the phrase elevator hoistway. Now as I hit go, I've searched across nearly 6,000 codes and standards, and I see the books with matches at the center, listed with the top number of matches at the top. To see the results in the 2009 I-codes only, I'm going to click on the book group that I've created before the webinar for the purposes of this webinar. And by doing so, I have opened up the webinar book group for the 2009 I-codes. And I see the matches in the IBC 2009 with 11 matches for the search query. So let me click on the IBC 2009 to go to the table of contents. And here I can see which chapters and sections have a match for the search. I can also click on View All Matches here on the right side to see all of the results together in list view. And I can select High-Rise Buildings Section 403 from this list. And as I go down to section 403.2.3, I see the new requirement for the structural integrity of exit enclosures and elevator hoistway enclosures. Now, first thing to note here is that this change does not apply to all high-rise buildings. It applies to high-rise buildings of occupancy category 3 and 4 in accordance with section 1604.5, and for all buildings that are more than 420 feet in building height. So for super tall buildings as well. Now to look at these categories, let's click on this hyperlink to jump to that section. And I'm going to open this in a new window. And as I go down to category 3 and 4, I can see which buildings and occupancy types are listed under these categories for 3 and 4. And I can view some of them here. So for example, secondary school facilities with an occupant load greater than 250 falls under category 3, and a group I2 occupancy with surgery or emergency treatment facilities falls under category 4, which would make the structural integrity requirement applicable to these buildings. Going back to section 403.2.3, I can see that the section provides requirements for the wall assembly and the assembly materials. And I'm going to go back to the presentation now where I summarize all of these changes. As we said before, the change applies to buildings more than 420 feet in height, such as the Bank of America Tower in New York City, and high-rise buildings of occupancy category 3 and 4, such as the Chance Cancer Center at the University of Florida, a new hospital. For the enclosures in these buildings, there are two requirements for the wall assembly and outer face of the wall, both measured for impact classification levels as tested according to ASTM C 1629. In number 1, the wall assemblies making up the enclosures are required to have a soft body impact classification level 2. In number 2, the outer face of the wall, not exposed to the interior side of the enclosure, is required to have one of the 3 hard body impact classification levels. The first one is that the outer face must incorporate a minimum 2 layers of construction board, each with a hard body impact classification level 2. Or it can incorporate a single layer of construction material with a hard body impact classification level 3. Or it can incorporate multiple layers of any material tested in tandem with a hard body impact classification level 3. Now, to give you a little bit more information about the impact classification levels and how this is tested according to ASTM, I was able to find a video on YouTube that was provided by Georgia Pacific for the testing of their gypsum wallboard. And in this quick video, you can see that a test apparatus impacting a gypsum board to test the level that it can penetrate into the stud cavity. And by doing this, they can establish its impact classification level according to the ASTM C 1629. An important exception to this section that we have to note is that concrete and masonry walls are considered to satisfy the integrity requirements of this section. So if you have concrete or masonry wall enclosures for the exit and hoistway enclosures, you do not need to meet the requirements of this section for impact classification. Now that we've completed our first change review, let's move on to the second one, which is related to sprayed fire-resistant materials.